Hello and welcome once again to a new episode of The Bike Show that has this week been blighted by our eternal enemies of unexpected rain, expected but still disturbing absences of electricity, and some medical issues that mean I am, unfortunately, not quite yet ready to ride bikes again. Soon though, very soon, since I am driving but am also still lacking just a bit of strength for the bikes. That means that when Don's bike tests were rained off this week and his interview scuppered by empty plug sockets, while my own riding features were hampered by my newly acquired stick insect legs, we were forced to rifle through all our press releases once again, though for a change, Don couldn't moan too much when I decided to dig out one of the bikes I filmed at a German museum a couple of years ago. It's a Grand Prix machine that features quite a lot of carbon fibre and is suddenly very relevant once again given the developments in MotoGP by the likes of KTM and Aprilia. Anyway, that's coming along later in the show. Here in part one, we're going to start with a couple of interesting new models before moving on to some potential new laws that are bound to raise bikers' blood pressures a bit and maybe get us all a bit hot under the collar. Let's begin though with Suzuki, who have just released details of a new, more road-focused version of their new middleweight V-Strom. Talk recently, including here on the Bike Show, has been about the two models already released as part of this new 800 platform, namely the naked GSX 8S and the V-Strom 800DE, with very strong, and it has to be admitted, quite logical rumours that a GSX 8R in the mould of a Yamaha R7 or Aprilia RS660 could also soon be on the way. Before that, we now have a confirmed third member of Suzuki's 800 family, that is the V-Strom 800 RE, whose natural competitors are, I suppose, the likes of Triumph's Tiger 660 and Yamaha's Tracer 7. The idea with these adventure bikes made slightly more road biased is to keep a lot of the strengths of the adventure model, namely long distance comfort and luggage carrying capacity, decent ride quality and useful range, and then dial in some more responsiveness for a sportier road ride. This RE does that by using cast wheels with a 17-inch rim at the rear, as on the DE, but paired with a 2-inch smaller 19-inch front rim, opening itself up to a much wider choice of tyres. The suspension has also been changed to a Shower big piston fork up front and a rear shock from the same company, both with a limited range of adjustability. This setup offers 150mm less suspension travel than the DE, but by the same token will generate a more responsive, firmer, confidence-inspiring behaviour for the road. The riding position has also been refined with a narrower and lower handlebar that pulls the rider further forward, and the foot pegs are also moved slightly higher and further backwards. The seat height, largely as a consequence of the reduced suspension travel, has dropped by 30mm to much more manageable 825mm. The RE's screen is larger and offers considerably more protection than the DE's slightly too dainty item, and it's three-way adjustable if you happen to be stopped and have an Allen key handy. So it's sort of not adjustable at all, is it, really? At least not in any useful sense. This RE model will undoubtedly prove popular in Europe, where these adventure road bikes sell very well, but in SA, where the gravel road network is more extensive than the tar one, that may not be the case, despite what looks like being a saving of at least 20,000 Rand over the DE model. Staying with the new stuff, well, newish, we have KTM 790 Duke. Yes, you heard right. The 790, which was truly new back when it was originally launched in South Africa in 2018, I think it was. Back then it had the new 799cc parallel twin and a very useful 105 horsepower, topped off with a pretty comprehensive suite of electronic rider aids. Inside 2 years, KTM had added the 890 Duke R to the mix with its now 899cc engine, delivering a hard-hitting 121 horsepower in a race-spec chassis that made it, in our opinion anyway, the most desirable of all the middleweight naked sport bikes. And then, not too much later, the 790 was gone, replaced by a more standard 890 that had 115 horsepower and less high-spec suspension and brakes than the R. Well, now the 790 has returned once again. This time, we presume to take the fight to the raft of more affordable 750-ish parallel twins that have hit the market this year and offer a suitable A2 learner 47 horsepower restricted model, which the 95 horsepower 790 Duke can now do. Apart from the 10 horsepower reduction, the electronics package is now a little more refined, and you'll be able to sample all of it before choosing which bits to keep after the 1500 kilometer demo mode runs out. And thanks to the new 790 being made at KTM Partners CF Moto factory in China, this model might actually, believe it or not, retail for a bit less than the original 790 did back in 2018. Confusingly, the 790 in parts of the world where there aren't any licensing restrictions will, I think, possibly get a 105 horsepower version of the 790, putting it much closer to the standard 890, which is obviously going to affect its pricing. We're not sure at the moment, but we'll let you know when we know which model KTM SA will be getting and at what price. Those learner laws, by the way, were introduced by the European Union, and it is that same body that will soon consider a proposal from a French member of the European Parliament. The French, so proud of their history of liberté and égalité and all that, do disappointingly seem intent on smashing many of the already limited freedoms that bikers currently enjoy. Oh well. Where was I? Yes. This MEP is proposing differing speed limits for different types of vehicle, and guess what? Yes. Inevitably, it seems, many bikes and bikers will be made to adhere to slower speed limits. This is based on the fact that statistically, we bikers are the most likely to be involved in an accident, or might one suggest that we're also the most vulnerable to the antics of other road users. Lower speed limits are suggested for riders at different stages of their learner licensing process and for different sizes of bike. Presumably, this level of detail being enforced by more state surveillance. Many traffic cameras here in Europe can already check whether you're on the phone or you're riding in a lane you shouldn't be, or if your vehicle is insured or roadworthy tested. So variable limits for different vehicles shouldn't be too much of a problem for them. This proposal will, in certain environments, force inexperienced riders down to a speed where bigger, ostensibly slower vehicles are allowed to travel faster than them, which seems like a recipe for a lot of new bikers being flattened from behind by impatient van and truck drivers. The same proposal could also see experienced riders, depending on their bike choice, not actually being allowed to reach the maximum highway limit of 130 kilometers an hour in many countries, even though it's legal for cars to do so. Good luck in enforcing that one, I have to say. Statistics can be useful things, but read the wrong way, they can also be misleading. Apparently, only 8% of Europe's biking accidents happen on highways. The vast majority occur on minor roads where the speed limits are usually already down at somewhere between 80 and 100 k's an hour. So why this obsession with motorcycle speed on highways? This might not immediately affect South Africa, but as we know, what happens over there often happens here just a few short years later. So stay alert, stay safe, and if you do have to crash, do us all a favour and try and do it slowly. Right, with that example of a do-gooding MEP's misguided efforts to help us poor bikers done with, let's finish this first part of the programme with some intriguing new tech from Yamaha. In the week leading up to the EICMA Expo in Italy, there will be the Japan Mobility Show in Tokyo, where Yamaha will have several world premieres, and the one that interests us the most is the Motoroid 2. Motoroid 1 was unveiled in 2017, giving us a glimpse at a future where the rider would be recognised by the bike that could then be guided via various hand gestures that the Motoroid's artificial intelligence would recognise. Using its ability to balance and move by itself, this mad-looking electrically powered bike would bring itself to you, and once you were on board, away you went, connected to the machine via a couple of extra touch points to enhance the haptic flow of information between you and the machine. To what ends this haptic exchange was taking place was never specified, but looking at recent developments in the industry, it's apparent that helping the rider be aware of his surroundings via sensors and cameras is gradually introducing a lot more info for a rider to process. So there's definitely scope for development in this kind of tech. We're interested to see what version 2 of Motoroid brings to the party, but early signs are it's likely not much more than a refinement of exactly the same technology with more PR talk of AI, facial recognition and self-balancing, but with it also having, and I quote Yamaha directly here, a distinctly lifelike feel when somebody is riding on its back and has a presence more like a lifetime companion. The only lifetime companion I have is my wife, and her AI already seriously outdoes my own third-rate IQ. So is Yamaha selling me the idea of an AI surrogate wife who's always with me, keeping tabs and haptically digging me in the ribs when I go too fast? Yeah, not sure I'll be in a hurry to pay for that optional extra. Hopefully it'll be like KTM's demo mode and you can decide not to keep it after 1,500 kilometres. Much food for thought from Yamaha. See you after this short break.